What do you guys think? Maybe just a couple more minutes. I can probably also text her.
Yeah.
Start recording. Okay, I am going to call the Housing Desegregation Subcommittee meeting to order. And I'm going to read the COVID-19 statement. The Housing Desegregation Subcommittee meeting is now commenced. It is November 29th at 1:08 p.m. This meeting is being held virtually due to COVID-19 to allow for social distancing and to protect the public health. As we continue our efforts in meeting remotely, we ask all commissioners and guests to mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using the call-in number to unmute to speak, dial *6 on your phone. Also, prior to speaking, please announce who you are to identify yourself. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. We ask that you only use the chat function to request to speak or to announce that you are leaving the meeting so that we can track quorum. Also, to comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio, not by using the chat function. And I will do the roll call now. Lori Meserba.
Present.
Jay Young, I am here, and Vicky Cusino is absent. We have 2 out of 3 members, so we have a quorum. So yeah, the second item on the agenda is discussion with strategic planning consultants. So strategic planning consultants, take it away.
Thanks, Jay. So yeah, as part of our strategic planning that you've contracted with us to do with you all, our retreat is not till after the new year, and in the meantime we're going to be interviewing committee members, commission members, and subcommittee membership to better understand where you are in the process, your goals, how well you think you're achieving your goals, and other related questions that'll help us help you craft your strategic plan. So we have a series of questions for you. And before we start in on that, just to introduce ourselves to you, Lori. My name is Tani Robertson, and with Southwest Decision Resources, we're a facilitation group based in Tucson. And we work on urban planning and natural resource related issues, as well as strategic planning and other collaborative efforts. And Colleen?
Hello, hi, Colleen Whitaker. Nice to be with you. Thanks for having us.
And we're also facilitating the Plan Tucson public engagement process. And I think at least you, maybe Lori, have been to some of those meetings, so we may have seen you there. Okay, so if we could just start with, oh, here comes Vicky. Give her a chance to fully join.
Hey, Vicky. Thanks for joining, Vicky. We literally just got started. I read the opening statement, did the roll call, and Tani and Colleen were just introducing themselves. They're the consultants that are helping us with the strategic planning, and that's about as far as we got, I think. So go ahead.
Yeah, so and Lori introduced herself. Vicky, you want to just introduce yourself to us really quickly?
I'm Vicky Casino, Executive Director of Direct Advocacy and Resource Center, which serves Southeastern Arizona individuals with diverse disabilities.
Great, good to meet you. And Colleen and I are with Southwest Decision Resources, and we're a professional facilitation group based in Tucson, working on urban planning issues in particular right now. So we just started in on well, we're about to start in on our questions for you, so perfect timing. So we thought we'd ask you first about the full commission and the goals that you are working towards in the commission, the 3 goals that we've been given as your goals. And we wanted to hear from each of you how you feel it's your commission, and if it's from your subcommittee's perspective, that's fine. But how you're feeling you are doing progressing towards these three goals. We'll go one goal at a time. What do you think it's going well and you're making progress on? What do you feel like are the challenges as well as opportunities related to that goal? So if we can just, we'll start with the goal of, and I don't know, we can't use the chat, but hopefully you remember this.
I think
Develop.
we can use the chat actually, Tony, as panelists, right? Let me try.
Yeah, it's just trying to, it's just so that you can visualize what we're saying. So develop and preserve affordability for all Tucsonans, including renters, homeowners, and those without housing. That first of your three goals. And how you feel, maybe we'll just go one, each of you in turn. What are you progressing on? What do you feel like are challenges related to that goal? And Jay, do you want to start?
Sure. So I guess I feel like as a full commission, we've done a pretty good job of surfacing ideas about how to preserve affordability. And, you know, we put forth recommendations to mayor and council. So I feel like with, you know, the capacity that we have as a committee, as a commission, I think that has gone actually pretty well. And I think where it hasn't gone well with the challenges and opportunities, I guess, is that there's not been a whole lot of feedback from mayor and council. So I think a lot of folks are kind of like, hey, we put this out there, and it feels kind of like it's gone into a black hole and we haven't gotten a lot of feedback. So I think that's kind of my quick take on you know, progress and challenges there.
Lori?
I would agree with what Jay said. I will say that my frustrations lie in, we do a lot of talking and a lot of dreaming and a lot of suggestions that don't seem to be followed up on. So, you know, we have ideas as a commission about what it'll take to do the things listed, you know, develop and preserve affordability. But not only do we not get feedback from mayor and council, we have these rich discussions and then there isn't any follow-up. So my frustrations lie there. I think it's a really diverse group that has a lot of knowledge about housing and what it takes to ensure that all folks have accessibility to housing. So I think that part's good. I think the right people are at the table.
Great, thanks, Lori. Vicky?
Oh, I agree with all of that. I would just say two areas that I think we have quite a ways to go is looking at those without housing, as well as disabled people, particularly those with significant physical disabilities. The other thing I'll add, though, is I think most of those rich discussions occur in committees. And I feel like not only do things not go anywhere beyond the commission, I feel like what we take from as a committee to the full commission goes nowhere. We're frequently having discussions in committees, take it to the full commission, and it's just acknowledged and we move on. And so I mean, we've had these discussions before. I'm just not really sure how this is a good use of our time.
Okay. Do you have other thoughts about, well, these are more overall commission related and how your process is working, how effective you can be as a commission. Do you have other, let's talk for a few minutes just about that. Any other thoughts about that? Then we'll actually look at specifically at these three goals. So any other thoughts about overall?
I would add that I think one of the things that's frustrating that I certainly have voiced, and I think other people have voiced it as well, so I don't feel like I'm just totally speaking for myself, but I feel like with the full commission, we will get these presentations from, staff, or I mean, it's mostly city staff. And the presentations are, the quality of the presentations are very good. The information is very good, but it's kind of feels like there's not the context that's necessary about like, why are we being presented this information? What are we supposed to do with it? How is it fitting into, what we've been doing as a commission before, to achieve our goals? And then, it feels like it's kind of a one-way street. It's like, kind of like, why are you telling us this? Like, great information, but like, why? And then, are there to-dos associated with the information? So, we have a very limited amount of time, obviously. And I think, like Lori said, there are a lot of good folks at the table with a lot of knowledge. But that context is not there, the to-dos aren't there, and it ends up taking up a lot of the commission's time. That again, I think seems to kind of die in a way, because it's like, well, what's that for? What's that about? What are we supposed to do with it?
If I could add to Jay's point, I think I've noticed that when we have those presentations, we then kind of get off on a tangent as a commission, and it is really unclear to me what we have power and decision making over, and what is us just throwing out our opinions about information that we've received. So I think sometimes we'll spend most of a commission meeting giving our opinions about some sort of information we've been given. And we go down this road. An example I can think of is when we were talking about, and I don't know all the right terminology, because I'm from the homeless world, not the development world, but we were talking about parking spaces at affordable housing complexes that were built, and whether you can get a I don't know what the word is, like a special pass to not have as many parking spaces, or that kind of thing. And we went off on a tangent and talked about it forever, and it was really clear to me that nothing we said was going to make a difference about it was a done deal. It was a decision made by the city. They weren't asking our opinion. So it feels like sometimes we waste some time because we're passionate about a topic, but it's not going to go anywhere, and we don't really have any influence over the discussions that we're having.
So, and you recently had a meeting with the city, Jay. Is there anything from that any headway?
It's a good question. In terms of what we are talking about in terms of like process, which I think is about a lot of what this is about. No, I don't think there was a lot there. However, I will say that so Jim and I met with the mayor, Ann Chineka was there, Allison Miller was there as well, and Hennessy's was there, and one other person was there, Hennessy's being the mayor's I think chief of staff, or at least person dealing with housing, and then another person whose name escapes me. But we met with the mayor for an hour, and she was incredibly engaged. She had a lot of ideas. She, I think, at least made me feel like the commission was quite important. And I walked out of the meeting feeling like she was very engaged about housing, did think our work was important. And so I think it kind of ignited a fire under me a little bit more about this process thing. Because, clearly if the mayor is engaged about these topics and has ideas, and we do too, but we're talking about this process issue, it just kind of reaffirmed for me how important that piece of the puzzle is. I think also the mayor was very engaged about equity issues. I think that, from the, since we're the desegregation subcommittee, I think we would all probably agree that, that is fundamentally rooted in housing equity in Tucson, and dealing with that issue, really underpins a lot of equity issues in Tucson. And I think the mayor was very clear about equity issues, things that need to be changed, having more housing in opportunity rich areas. She even went into detail about, inequities in terms of how the city and the county work together and don't work together, and how funding works for housing and whatnot. So, it was a very, very good meeting, and went, better than I could have imagined. So, anyway, that's kind of what, just again, off the top of my head, without like kind of looking at notes, and, kind of what I came away from the meeting, thinking.
So would you say that it's that there is more alignment and interest in the value of the commission, but not necessarily yet how you can operationally work together better and have a more clear role? And
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. So do you all have thoughts about how the relationship could be strengthened if there is alignment, shared interest in the same kinds of issues? Like, what are specific ways that you all could work together better and the commission have a more solid role?
I think it would be great if someone from the mayor's office attended regularly. Because then there's at least a person who takes back things to her office. We have asked for the chief equity officer of the city of Tucson to attend our meetings, and she has a couple times, but not consistently. So I just think we feel kind of separate. I'm so glad to hear you say that, Jay, and that's good, and that makes me feel like my time has not been wasted. But I don't think we would have known that had you not have had that meeting, right? So I think some sort of more consistent connection between mayor and council and us as a commission would at least let us know that this time that we've been spending for almost 3 years now, like the mayor and council is getting the information, they're hearing it, they're using suggestions and conversations that we're having.
Lori, that also reminded me of something that the mayor said that was very simple that I actually kind of appreciated. She was like, invite us to your meetings. And I was like, well, I mean, we don't necessarily need to invite you, your mayor and council, but point taken, it's like actually extend a formal invitation, like, hey, we're having this meeting, this is what we're meeting about, and we would like your input. So while I kind of thought, I don't know that that's necessary, I think in kind of just the terms of bureaucracy and process, it is actually a point taken. And it was a door open to how we could get them to be more engaged with our meetings. So I appreciated that.
Vicky?
So I have to say, I'm very cynical. I'm just about done with this whole commission. I have no interest in it whatsoever right now. And Jay, I haven't even followed up on the accessibility stuff that needs to be done because I'm ready to walk away. I just honestly don't care anymore. I think it is the biggest waste of my time. I've had the same experience with another commission. I think these commissions are useless and just window dressing. There is no commitment from mayor and council to actually use the information coming from these commissions. I think they're set up because it looks good and they have no desire to get our input. I have no hope for this, and I apologize, but even the strategic planning for the commission, I want to say, why the hell are we doing this? Because what we do goes nowhere. I mean, the fact that mayor said we should invite her to the meetings, that's appalling to me. and I'm gonna start using language that I shouldn't on a public meeting. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. I mean, I find that to be absolutely offensive.
So what would make, if you could, you know, if they said, okay, what is it that would make it worth your time? Like, how is it that, what would your roles be? If they asked you to recommend how you could be more, they could value your role, what would that be? Are there specific plans that you would have oversight over, or money expenditures, or like, can you think of specific ways that you could recommend to them to feel like you had a really significant, important role? Vicky, how about for you? What would make you not want to leave the commission?
Well, I think we've already described everything. I mean, we talk in committees and take it to the full commission and it goes nowhere. The commission has discussions and then it goes nowhere. I mean, all we do is have meetings. You know, it's just, it just takes up time. And I don't feel that we've accomplished anything except had some good discussions and received information.
I think if there was a better feedback loop between mayor and council and the commission, you know, because I'd like to think that they're working on things and that they are hearing our feedback, but they're busy, so maybe we're just not getting that back. But I think a feedback loop. I also agree with Vicky in some ways about it being window dressing. You know, at one point, they brought something for us to vote on and it was about funding, but the funding decisions were already made. And they just needed us to, as a commission, sign off on it. And I'm sure it was some sort of government mandate. And I guess I get that to some extent, but I think things like that erode away at folks who do this usually after work time, right? Because it's in the evening, so you want your time to be used well, because, you know, for the most part, I mean, I'm not, you know, that's not really part of my workday. I'm doing it on my own time. So I want it to be useful. And I think if we knew the discussions they were having and maybe got some of the feedback that Jay got when he met with the mayor, that would make me feel way more engaged, rather than I give my opinion, I talk or I listen, and then nothing happens and we meet again next month.
I would also say, you know, I think kind of picking up this thread that Vicky started, you know, the kind of, yeah, I just think that the thing that is the elephant in the room, and I just find this to be the case about all housing discussion these days, particularly as it relates to affordability, is that if we're being honest, the city can't do a lot. You know, the city is able to attract more low-income housing tax credit projects, and I think we have been a force for good in helping that to happen more in Tucson. But that's such a limited pot of money, and that is kind of the extent of what kind of affordable housing is being built through the help of government. And if we're not honest about that, which I don't think we really are, we just rely on the market that is broken in terms of fixing the affordable housing crisis. I mean, it's struggling even to build, you know, housing appropriate for, you know, just middle income folks, much less, you know, affordable housing for poor folks, basically. And so, you know, this idea, I think one of the things as well, you know, that does have some power behind it that cities can do, it is our housing bonds, right? I know a lot of other cities throughout the country have done that. And, you know, that's a way that a city can come up with its own funding to build affordable housing. But I do think that, you know, this idea of window dressing is like, well, you know, it's recognizing that this is a problem and that there's this illusion that we're actually going to be able to do something about it under the current kind of market regime that we have and the way that the city functions. So that's not the city's fault. I don't think so. You know, I think that's another really big thing underlying our frustration. I would also say, aside from so I think the other thing that happens too with the commission is that housing affordability is easy to conceptualize, right? It's like housing is unaffordable for people. People need more money for housing. Housing needs to be cheaper, right? People can get that idea, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. This commission is about equity, and there are all of these other components to equity and housing equity that have been really difficult for us to get traction around. And I think one of the things that I've been frustrated about as the full commission, and this has occurred in our subcommittee as well, is like one of the things I think that's in kind of the charter, or the reason that this commission exists is to deal with gentrification. And I know we as a committee have asked staff to come in and give us a presentation about the state of gentrification and what the city is or isn't doing about it. We've asked that at the full commission, and the information is not forthcoming. And so, I think, again, I understand the complexity of the topic and I understand the difficulty of doing anything about it. But when those things don't happen, I feel like it's difficult for us as a commission to get the things that we need, or information that we need that may or may not exist, but it's like we need to know if this information exists so that we can think about how to deal with these issues. And I that's been a real frustration. So when we ask for information or direction or whatever, and we don't get it, it's like, well, what can we do about that? It's like, I mean, we're not overseeing staff. We don't have staff of our own. And so I think that really stymies what we can do as well. So I think partly too is like, there seems to be commitment in some aspects regarding housing equity from the city and city staff, but when the rubber meets the road and we actually try and dig into the things that relate to housing equity, again, it just kind of seems like nothing happens, I guess, to put it simply. And that's really frustrating. So again, it's like, well, why do you need us if we're not getting information and we can't even kind of, sound off about these things and figure out, like gentrification, where is it happening? What are policies that can be put in place? What has been put in place, right? I mean, we're 3 years in, and just that as an example is something that I think that the city needs to be driving the bus to a certain extent, right? If that's why we're in existence and we're trying to help the city deal with these issues, they've got to set the table to a certain extent for us to do anything about it or provide information and feedback, and that doesn't happen. So, again, part of that's process. I think it's like, what's the process here?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just wondering, is Neto, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, just wondering, as the city coordinator assigned to this commission, subcommittee and commission, do you have any thoughts to share about this topic?
As a staffer coordinator, with all frankness, I don't want to answer. I don't feel it's my place to answer. I don't mean to cop out, but I have some personal thoughts, but
Yeah, I agree. I kind of think that's putting Neto on the spot in a way that's probably not.
That's fine. Just wanted to at least give you the chance. Okay, so how about if we talk about your topic of desegregation and how you feel that I mean, unless you want to talk about your overall goals, which we didn't really get to because of course the process is your bigger concern. But if you talk about desegregation specifically, what do you, and I know that you were going to get to this afterwards, these proposed goals, and maybe you can talk in light of the kind of goal topics that are on the agenda, but how do you feel that, if you can just explain to us more about what your scope is for this subcommittee and what are you mostly focusing on? What do you think's worth your time to focus on? Just share any thoughts you have along those lines. Whoever wants to start. Jay?
I'm sure, I'm happy to start unless Lori or Vicky, you guys want to start. I think that as a subcommittee, we definitely spent a lot of the first several months, a year or more, getting our feet on the ground. I think we also have reviewed a lot of information. We've shared a lot of resources, and I think that we've come to a pretty decent understanding as a group about some of the things that we're wanting to address. And I think we have, as I mentioned, have tried to address some of these things. And the vision and goals. So the agenda that you see is kind of what we've figured out to be our standing agenda, because these are the things that we've been talking about. And I think, as y'all know, we have basically suspended meeting because of these issues and the feeling that things aren't really going anywhere, and we're confused as to how to move this stuff forward. But one of the things that we did as a subcommittee was we worked with a class at Arizona State, and they put together an equity study that looked at what other cities are doing to improve housing equity. And we brought that to the commission. It was on the agenda. It never really went anywhere. I don't know if folks didn't read it or, but we put that study really put forth a lot of the groundwork of what we have been asking for, which is, the city needs to do an equity study, or take what other reports and stuff that have been done that do indeed address equity, and kind of put it into a coherent framework about, what the city wants to do and things it can do regarding housing equity. But, we put a lot of time and effort into that, and the students did as well. And, again, it just seemed to fizzle. So, I don't know if that was partly our responsibility as the subcommittee to be more forceful about, demanding that the city do a study, but that doesn't seem I don't think to us, it didn't really seem appropriate because, again, we're not in the position to be dictating what city staff does. And, we understand that they're have a lot of work on their plate already. And, but I think, again, the frustration that I had, and that I think we all had as a subcommittee, is, well, what is the capacity of city staff? What is the interest of city staff in addressing equity and the things that we've kind of brought to the table? Because, again, and maybe this is just my perspective, but again, it feels like it needs to be this collaborative thing. And I think one of the things we've asked for repeatedly is we need to figure out how the city is measuring housing equity, whatever those metrics may be. It needs to start measuring equity today so that we can think about policies to improve equity, and then look at how those policies are impacting equity over time, 1 year out, 5 years out, 20 years out, et cetera. So again, I think that we have brought forward ideas and even work product that, none of us have the capacity to do, but we're able to, get done for free, that again has just floundered. So, I feel like, again, we have in our subcommittee talked a lot about ideas and, goals and stuff, and have produced some work product and ideas and whatnot. But again, how do they get operationalized? Is that, if the capacity and interest is not there to actually do the things regarding equity that we're suggesting, that are coming from, research and what other places are doing, and, think tanks that are producing this kind of work, I think, again, it's back to this process and the frustration. So at least that's how I kind of, again, thinking back over the past, 3 years or so, of working on the desegregation subcommittee, that's kind of what my thoughts are. I'm interested to hear, Lori and Vicky, what you guys' reflections are of kind of what we've done and come up with, and, whatever.
Well, I would just add, I mean, I wasn't part of this committee from the beginning, I think, and what, even before joining the committee, what I saw, and I think is still consistent, is a lot of work has come out of this committee, and that's, you know, to your credit, Jay and Lori and anybody else who may have been participating. And we have commission meetings, and some committees haven't even met, don't have reports. It just adds to the frustration. And I don't remember the last meeting, but it just seems like multiple meetings. It's like, oh, no, we didn't have quorum, or that committee didn't meet. And it's always just this committee. So it's, you know, the same individuals or group, you know, doing work, and then, you know, presenting something that we hope to get traction on, and it doesn't go anywhere. I would almost just like to know, like, okay, if there isn't a reason for the commission, get rid of it.
Just to follow up, at the other subcommittees, is the quorum 2/3 of the members of the subcommittee?
Isn't it 50% plus one?
Or 50% plus one? So in your
I'm
case,
not sure. I'm not
Yes.
positive about that, but
Yes,
so are the
50%
other
plus one.
subcommittees, is it that the chairs haven't convened their committees, or that they're not getting participants, so they're not meeting quorum? Do you know?
I think it's the lack of participation and quorum. Neto probably knows better as well.
Yes, correct. For example, the Housing First has had some difficulty in recent months in getting a quorum. The full commission had lacked a quorum last month. And the affordable housing, yes, two other committees and the full commission have had issues with quorum.
So the chair of the subcommittee will call a meeting and try to schedule it, but then people aren't coming. Is that?
The meetings are on a regularly
Oh, they're
scheduled.
on a regular schedule, but
Regular
then they're
schedule.
just not getting the full.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and thanks for adding that, Neto. I
Mhm.
was thinking about that commission meetings, it's almost every time, you know, we have to wait. We don't necessarily start on time because
Right.
we're waiting to see if we have quorum. I think I missed the last meeting. I was traveling, but, you know, and I'll be honest, I don't prioritize them anymore. Just like this one, I was late because I'm on a deadline for something else. It's not a priority for me anymore because I don't feel like it's a good use of my time. And so I'm just in a bad place with it. So it's hard to even provide input. Something needs to change drastically.
So the issue or issues are priority. The commission's lack of a significant role is what you're not able to prioritize anymore, right? So, Lori, what about you in terms of the subcommittee?
I think Jay summed it up really well. Yeah, but we don't talk about desegregation much in the commission. We're very focused on housing, which is great. We should be. It's a big need. But I think when we have those conversations about housing, they need to have a lens of equity on them, and I think we're lacking in that a little bit. Also, I feel like a broken record, but you know, the follow-up. We met very regularly as a subcommittee for the last couple years, and so you take a chunk out of time for the subcommittee and a chunk of time for the commission meeting, and to not have any feedback. You know, we've not actually been told as a commission or a subcommittee, like if our work is moving the needle in any way, shape, or form. So I find that frustrating. I'm really consistent with attendance, and last month when we didn't have quorum, there was a conversation about, well, should we reschedule this or should we not? And there was absolutely no follow-up. So I wasn't sure if I was going to have to carve out time to meet again, because we decided to reschedule. So I think it's things as simple as like, there's just so little communication. We get an agenda, but that's really it. There isn't much else going on except for when we meet and we actually talk.
I wanted to add something. I don't know if it's something you said, Lori or Jay. It's a little off, but one thing, and I believe we've asked for, it came out of our subcommittee, but it didn't go anywhere, and we may have only mentioned it once. But talking about shared language, like, I don't know, there's different ways to define even desegregation, and we haven't revisited that. I think there's a document or a PowerPoint called shared language, but it was one commission member who came up with it. And I believe it was a presentation, maybe when the commission was first formed. I wasn't on it. And it's pretty lengthy and cumbersome. I've tried to tackle it a couple of times. I also don't necessarily agree with all of the definitions. Anyway, I don't think that we have a shared language. So for some of these discussions that we're even having, I don't know that we're all even on the same page or talking about the same thing.
I also wanted to add, just kind of picking up on those threads as well, is that, yeah, I mean, Lori, you and Vicky have been wonderful. I mean, quorum has not been an issue for us, really at all. And I don't feel like it was an issue for the commission as a whole. I mean, I think the last meeting was the first time that we haven't met quorum, but I think that speaks to kind of where we are as a group, and prioritizing, because so I think that's important to note. And, the past 6 months, we just as a group, I don't know, 6 months or so ago, give or take, we just were kind of like, as a subcommittee, we were like, we've done a lot here, and there's a lot to dig into, and there's not anything else that we should be doing until the things that we have put forward get some traction. So we were just kind of like, why are we meeting? Because after the third meeting in a row of essentially the same discussion, we were like, well, we're just having the same discussion. So let's just suspend our subcommittee meeting until this meeting when we we're going to meet with y'all. And I think we were just kind of waiting to see what happened with the strategic planning. And then I just wanted to add as well, just back to what's on our agenda in terms of the vision and goals for our subcommittee. I will say again, without prompting, I think the mayor, when we had our meeting with her, really touched on all of those goals, those A through E that's on our agenda. And again, I felt like had a very deep understanding of these issues and the desire to actually address them. So again, I think just in terms of kind of like how we as a subcommittee, not talking to anybody on mayor and council, have come up with our vision and goals and the things that we're talking about, and kind of the work product we've created, there is clear alignment in my mind with our goals and vision that we've come up with as a subcommittee, and what the mayor was telling us in our meeting with her, unprompted. I mean, I was just like, oh, right, that aligns with what we've been talking about. So, again, there was a lot of alignment, I think, from the equity side, from when we talked to the mayor.
Sorry. What are your next steps for these 5 goals or topics that aren't yet in goal statements, to figure out how to move them forward, to talk with this, with the city, figure out what is it that you can do together? Is that a next step, is meeting with them about this and concrete ways to move forward with clear roles for both sides? Or like, what is your thought, Jay, on the practical side?
Somebody that's not our committee or our subcommittee or commission needs to pick this up and do something with it. I mean, I know that's pretty vague, but you know, we can't tell people what to do. We put a lot on the table. And if, you know, there is either, again, I really, I know that I think, at least I feel like when I talk about some of this stuff that I'm coming across as really critical of city staff. And, you know, obviously there's some criticism in there, but I think ultimately what I feel like, and I just want to be clear about, is that I really appreciate the work that city staff is doing. And I do think that city staff, particularly HCD, I do think they care about equity. I think they understand equity. And I think that the work that they're doing is advancing affordable housing in the best way that they possibly can with their, you know, capacity and just the nature of, you know, like I was talking about, is there's just not a lot that the city can do, but I just feel like HCD staff is really doing what they can to address these issues. So I want that to be clear in terms of, you know, also, you know, some criticism or observations about process, but I don't necessarily think that's HCD's fault either. So I just want to be clear about that. But I do think that I just don't know that that's for us to answer. I mean, at the end of the day, we're the subcommittee. We're putting our time and effort into this. We've got a lot of stuff on the table that we've come up with that we think could be moved forward, but we can't move it forward anymore. Like, I feel like we've done what we can. So somebody else needs to figure out what it is that happens next. I mean, either somebody needs to tell us so that we can follow those steps, or somebody else needs to figure it out. And I think that, you know, we've been very clear as a commission and a subcommittee that that's where we stand. And so I guess I don't really have an answer to that.
The answer is the next step is the city needs to figure that out, like you're saying. That somebody else is on the city side.
I would add too that I would be okay if we were told we have no capacity to do that. You know, like, then we wouldn't spin our wheels in our subcommittee with these grand ideas. You know, I would prefer transparency. Like, I get it. I understand they're on a budget. They have limited staff, all of those things. I mean, I work at a nonprofit. That is not new news, right? Like, but tell us, because otherwise we're over here thinking you gave us the task. We're doing what you told us to. We're bringing it to you and it's going nowhere. Is it going nowhere because it's a terrible idea? Is it going nowhere because there's no resources to put towards it? Is it going nowhere because mayor and council doesn't agree with the things that we're bringing forward? Like, who could know? Because we don't get feedback.
Okay. And then that's for the subcommittee. And then do you feel like that's also for the commission itself?
Yeah, I think so. You know, we talk about really, really big topics in the commission itself, and I'm not really sure what our influence or our role is sometimes when we get these presentations. I think Jay may have said something to that effect earlier, but when you give us these presentations, what are we supposed to do with it? You know, or are we supposed to do anything with it? Or is it just for us to better understand the system at the city level? Which any of those choices would be fine. I just think it's lack of direction.
I also just think I really appreciate, Lori, how you articulated the need for transparency regarding capacity. Because again, you know, if we got the response that like these issues and the things that you are doing as a subcommittee are really important, but we don't have the capacity to move this forward, we don't have somebody on staff or capacity to, you know, develop these measurements or whatever, then we could shift our time to, I'm just making stuff up, but looking for grant funding to bring somebody on to do this work, or partner with the university again to, you know, so I think that there are other things that we could do, you know, if the capacity is not there. But I think Lori's spot on with that. with that observation.
Okay, so what about in terms of the retreat? What do you hope to get out of the retreat? Who do you think should be involved if beyond your own commission members? What are your thoughts about the retreat? Vicky?
Oh, I'm not looking forward to it. I'll be honest. I don't see what we'll get out of it. So somebody needs to convince me that it's worth my time. Because just there is absolutely nothing we've done yet that has shown me there will be any change. I feel like we've arrived at this point because the commission is not doing anything and kind of failing. And we keep having the same conversations over and over again. So it's like, okay, let's bring somebody in from the outside to help us figure this out. But I some of it is beyond the commission's control. So I just don't know how that is even resolved without somebody from, mayor and council. And I also think the issue is bigger than just this commission.
Mm-hmm. Bigger meaning other commissions also, or yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Lori, what are your thoughts about the retreat?
I think it will be good to get a strategic vision. And I'm also hoping that part of the reason you're all meeting with us is so that we can address some of the things that we feel like haven't been working well since the commission started. So my hope would be we get some clearer direction and we're honest as a group with really what we're tasked with, what we're able to do, and what we're not able to do. I'm okay with being told no. Again, I can't say it enough. I think it's just the lack of any clear direction or feedback. So I would hope that we get a good, clear strategic plan and we make a commitment as a commission to have better feedback loop and follow up on some of the things that we haven't followed up on in the last couple of years.
Okay, thanks. And is there anybody else beyond the commission you think should be participating in the retreat?
I guess I need to understand what their role would be. I mean, I'm kind of unclear exactly what the retreat hopes to accomplish. And if we bring in extra folks, what would their role be?
Well, extra folks could be on the city side, for example. What the retreat is going to accomplish and how it's the agenda, that's all being shaped now. So these are questions that could inform that.
I'll just add to what's been said. I think Lori pretty much nailed it. I mean, to me, it really comes down to defining our processes more clearly, like how things are getting done, direction and framework, right? I think, again, Lori said that. I think we really need to be, I think for any commission that's going to do serious work, I think it needs to be facilitated. And I think that that's true with almost any kind of work that you're going to, you almost always need outside facilitation, I think, for it to be effective. And I think that considering how big an issue housing is and what, percentage of the economy, all of that stuff, we really need a facilitator or facilitators that are working with us on a regular basis, like the Complete Streets committee or whatever that you guys have talked about. I think that to me shows buy-in from the city and actually helps to get work done. And then I guess the other thing, back to kind of Vicky's point is when we come together and we talk through this stuff, these frustrations are going to come out, and I think we need to have an honest discussion about, do we continue? Because I think a lot of us are at the point of, like, again, I don't think everybody's quite to Vicky's point, but I think a lot of us are, on that spectrum of, like, do we continue? So, I think that should be part of the discussion. And I think, there's that more could be said if a lot of us were like, you know what, we're not going to continue. Essentially, we're resigning because nothing's happening. I think that can make a very loud statement as well. And I think we need to, really consider whether or not, based on what we can get done at the strategic planning meeting, how many of us are willing to continue, and what for.
Okay. So, well, I think that those are our main questions right now, and we've talked a lot about, your biggest concerns and strategized. So I think, it's pretty clear where you stand on all this. And so we'll have subsequent conversations, and then, work with Jay and Jim to really frame up a hopefully really useful retreat. So thank you so much for all of your honest, sharing. And these issues are super important. And so hopefully this will lead to something, where you're going to have a role in the future, and you will be able to impact these issues. And that the fact that the city and you both care about them and prioritize them is really good ground to start with. So any other questions or thoughts that you have before we close
Yeah.
this?
I do. I would just really encourage Colleen, you and Tani, to be more communicative with the commission now. I think, like, are you going to communicate with our subcommittee about kind of what your findings were, or is that going to be part of another CEHD, full commission meeting? Is there going to be communication about, based on our initial meetings, what you guys think the framework of the strategic planning session will be? Like, I think we need a lot more communication going into it, because I think that's just kind of been the issue with our commission work going forward. So I would really encourage you guys to, take it to another level in terms of, like, what's been going on so far. So I don't know what that looks like specifically, but, even in the next couple of weeks, if you guys could, give us some specifics, some, notes about what you've been hearing. Obviously you guys are facilitators and kind of get that, but I think that would be incredibly useful, and really give us a little bit more confidence going into the session that that something good can come out of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's good. When is your next full commission meeting? I just don't have my calendar pulled up.
Next week.
Next week.
Thursday, 7th.
Yep, at 4 to 6.
Oh, okay. And then again, January, first Thursday of January, or are you meeting then or not?
You're referring to the subcommittee or the full commission?
No, the full commission.
The full commission would then meet again scheduled to meet in January, on January 4.
Right.
The first Thursday.
Okay. Sounds good. And we're circling back with Jay and Jim and working out, actually, I think we've had emails back and forth about settling on a time so that we can, we have tried to reach out to the other subcommittees and haven't heard back. So we'll have to.
I can help you that.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right. And just a reminder that we have 2 tentative dates for the retreat, February 2nd, February 9th, on our calendars.
Right, so we need to finalize that.
And hopefully next week, the commission will finalize on those 2 dates. We've also asked the mayor if she wants to attend briefly the retreat.
Yeah, I was just going to say, mayor and council should be invited as soon as possible. The mayor told Jim and myself that, were she invited, she would certainly come and, talk about some of the things that we've discussed. So I know that she was interested in participating if possible. So yeah, they certainly need to have some sort of presence, even if it's not them, they're at least their staffers or whatever. So, and obviously folks from HCD, I think that goes without saying.
Neto, who do you anticipate coming from HCD?
I anticipate interim director Ann Chineka,
Mhm.
Allison Miller, certainly myself, maybe Jason Thorpe, interim deputy director.
So,
mhm.
I'm sorry, both prospective dates are a Friday.
Yes, Vicky, both are
Yeah,
on Friday.
so I most likely won't be there.
Okay.
I can't do Fridays.
Mhm.
Which I'm not disappointed, but
It sounds like. And those are.
no,
Friday-
I mean, I was hoping that maybe somebody could convince me that something good would come out of it, but, and maybe you will, but I travel, I do, I can't. It would take a lot for me to be able to do a Friday, so.
Yeah, and are those Jay and Neto, are those the final dates? Because you guys decided to
Yes.
get weekends, right? So we're looking really at Fridays.
Yes.
Okay. All right, sorry it doesn't work for you, Vicky. Okay, well, we'll circle back with Jay and Jim and then with all of you in the next week or two.
Okay.
And build your confidence in the retreat.
Perfect. Thanks, Colleen and Tani, for stopping by and engaging with us. We certainly appreciate your time and definitely look forward to seeing what's going to come of the strategic planning retreat. And Vicky and Lori, if you guys could hang out for a couple more minutes, we just need to kind of go through our agenda. We don't really have much else to cover, but just in the interest of doing what we got to do.
Great, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Carol.
y'all.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So Vicky and Lori, that was really the intent of the meeting today. We just kind of recycled the old agenda. So, but I'm just going to run through it real quick to wrap up our meeting. And if there's anything to talk about, well, let me do this first. We're still on number 2, discussion with strategic planning consultants. I definitely feel like I kind of said what I needed to say, but I wanted to just give a few minutes if you guys want to reflect on what we talked about. If not, that's totally fine too.
I appreciated the opportunity to, like you said, say what I thought I needed to say. I hope they take the feedback in earnest and use it to help us create, a productive day. For what it's worth, I would put a plug in for the 9th rather than the 2nd. I will still make it on the 2nd. However, I fly in very late, on February 1st. So for what it's worth, I put a plug in for the 9th.
Got it. Thanks.
Duly noted.
Any other thoughts from you, Vicky, or should we move on down the agenda?
No, just, I had said, I have to go to my parents on weekends I'm on caregiving duty, and that's Friday is half a day. I'm traveling on Friday to there. So it would take some juggling, and I can't prioritize it at this point. It would take a lot of juggling for me to be able to do a Friday.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, if we're good with the discussion with the number 2, I will move on to number 3, which is HCD update. Neto, I don't know if you have anything that you would like to share.
Very brief. This update is related to the choice implementation grant, $50 million grant that the city received earlier this year to remodel, transform the Tucson house. So last week and this week, HCD staff is conducting a survey with Tucson house residents. It's a requirement. You can you can believe how many requirements HUD has in this grant. So
I can believe it. I can believe it.
so in collaboration with the University of Arizona, we are surveying residents. We need to survey about 65% of the 400 so residents. A survey on their situation present at the Tucson House, some of their challenges, their needs and expectations when the project is eventually completed. And also HCD today, tomorrow, and next week will close on 3 job openings, 4 positions related to the Tucson House, related to the grant. And so we're looking forward to seeing additional staff here in our Space HCD group, and the work that we're doing with the Tucson House. And it's challenging, but it's invigorating. It's good to meet a lot of the personally, it's good to meet a lot of the residents who I usually don't interact with at the Tucson House.
That's great. Thanks, Neto, and good luck with the new hires and with the work at the Tucson House. Obviously, that's the $50 million is great and sorely needed. So it's good to hear about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Neto. And from there, we'll move on to number 4, vision and goals for the Housing Desegregation Subcommittee. As I mentioned, this is just basically the same agenda we've been using. I'm happy to entertain any thoughts or discussions about number 4, but if not, I will move on.
I think we keep it as is until after we have this retreat to see if we have any new charge.
Yep, makes sense to me. All right, number 5, action items for the Housing Desegregation Subcommittee. Lori, I think you kind of summarized it well. I think we're still kind of on hold and really waiting to see what transpires at the strategic planning retreat. Are there any other action items that you guys can think of that we need to discuss? Okay. Action item number 6, action items for CEHD. I think same is true here. I don't know that we've got any action items for the full commission until after the retreat. Is that accurate? Okay. Number 7, call to the audience. This is the time when any member of the public may address the commission on Equitable Housing and Development Subcommittee, Housing Desegregation Subcommittee. Due to time constraints, the total time allocated for this is 15 minutes. Individuals are allowed 3 minutes each. Due to open meeting law, commission members cannot discuss topics that are not on the agenda. Items brought up by the public may be considered as an agenda item for a future meeting. I don't see anybody from the public at the meeting. Is that accurate, Neto?
That is correct.
All right, no calls, nobody from the audience then. Okay, next steps, agenda item number 8, the Housing Desegregation Subcommittee. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 28th at 1 p.m. And the full commission is scheduled for December 7th at 4 p.m. We've already discussed that we're not planning on meeting until the strategic planning retreat. So our meeting on December 28th will be canceled, as will our meeting in January. If for some reason that changes and we need to have a meeting in January, obviously we can do that. But at this point, those next two meetings are canceled.
Okay.
With that, we are adjourned. So really appreciate everybody coming today and really being forthright about our experience on the commission and what we hope for the commission going forward. So again, you guys are a pleasure to work with, and I really appreciate y'all showing up and giving your time. So with that, have a wonderful holiday season if I don't see you.
Be well,
Everybody.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Likewise. Bye.